It's a long way from the tropical sunshine of the Dominican Republic to the snowy shores of Lake Michigan. Our next guest has made not only a journey of miles, but also a journey of emotional discovery to share her story with us. Miguelina Quiñones, once an immigrant child herself, now works in a school district that could be called the United Nations of the Midwest. Miguelina, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you. I feel like I belong here.
Awesome, awesome. So the Dominican Republic is only a short flight to the southern United States, but in terms of culture, it's a big distance. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The music, I miss that. I miss the people. Mm-hmm. It is long distance. I miss my culture. Yeah. It is different.
Yeah. So what aspects in particular have you noticed?
I miss the food.
Okay.
It doesn't taste the same, even though you use the same ingredients. Mm-hmm. People, you don't get this sense of the warmth, love, and it's your family. I miss my family.
Sure.
And I miss the beaches in the Dominican Republic. Sure. And where I grew up. Mm-hmm. The sun shining all day. Yes.
We have sun here, but only for a few months.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think Midwesterners as a whole are fairly welcoming and friendly, but there's still this overriding sense of this is a kind of Anglo culture, a little bit more formal, mm-hmm. a little more distant. And in Latin culture, there's more touching and more hugging and kissing and
everyone is cousin.
Yeah.
It's a cousin. Everyone, you greet everyone with a kiss, and there is not that much of a distance. So, I mean, I feel welcome mm-hmm. in Michigan. Mm-hmm. However, I lived in New York for 16 years, mm-hmm. so it's totally different. Mm-hmm. It's not as it's not like in the Dominican Republic, New York, but comparing the three cities, it's a big difference between
Sure.
the three of them.
And in New York City, there's actually a large Dominican community.
There is.
Yeah.
There is, especially in Washington Heights.
Okay.
And in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your family's immigrant story from the DR to the U.S.
Okay. My mother remarried when my father died. My father died when I was 6 years old, mm-hmm. and my mother remarried, and her husband brought us to New York City, and we were there for 14 years. It was rough going to school. It was my last year of high school in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, no.
And because of the language, I was held back. I was put in 10th grade.
Okay.
And that was hard.
Which is a bit insulting to a teenager.
It was. Yeah. It was. And I was always so eager to learn, and I love the language.
Okay.
I'm still struggling with English, but I get there.
You're doing
I love
great.
it. So it was hard being in 10th grade when all my friends in the Dominican Republic were graduating, and I was still 2 years behind. But I had an awesome teacher.
Okay.
In William Howard Taft High School, where I graduated from. Okay. And she was the ESL teacher, and she told me, Mickey, she even changed my name, which is okay. And she said, I'm going to teach you English. And I was so happy. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And truly, I think that ESL teachers are often the salt of the earth and the soul of humanity in the educational world.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I think it's just so much more than just teaching vocabulary. We are, ESL teachers are more, we are so close to the family, especially when you lived the same situation. I was there. Mm-hmm. I was one of those kids in the classroom who didn't know what was going on. And I feel connected to my students, and I feel connected to the struggle.
So when you're growing up in New York, spending your time there, were kids mean to you?
They were.
Okay.
They were, but I had a strong mother.
Okay.
And my mother used to leave the house at 5:30 in the morning. She worked in Brooklyn.
Okay.
and she was in the train riding the train for 2 hours, and we didn't have beautiful clothes, and coming from the Dominican Republic, and I was wearing a horrible coat, and the words, whatever we got, that's what we had.
Sure.
But the kids were mean in school, especially when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
They would say things like, "Where did you get that coat from?" And I said, "I got it from my mom." And that's what it is.
Who loved me very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not the way you look outside, it's who you are.
Yeah.
And I think my coat didn't represent who I was.
Yeah. So what gave you strength to persevere?
My mother.
Okay.
My mother, and seeing my family in the Dominican Republic and loving the culture. I love the United States.
Okay.
I love the culture, and I love the fact that you get so many opportunities. If you want to make it, if you want to go to school, you will do it because the doors are open.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a strong family. My mother always told me, I didn't go to school because I couldn't, but I want you to go to school.
Yeah.
So I got up every morning and I said, I got to graduate. I have to do this for me. And I want my kids to grow up and be the best they can be.
Sure, sure. Is your mom still alive?
My mother is. She lives in the Dominican Republic.
Okay, so she went back.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
She went back 11 years ago.
Okay.
So she worked in Brooklyn for a long time. And then she decided that it was time for her to go.
Okay. So home was there
Yes.
for her.
Yes.
So how do you get from Brooklyn and being integrated in a Dominican community to Grand Rapids, Michigan?
It's a long story, but I'm going to make it short. So going from the Dominican Republic, my mother worked in Brooklyn. I lived in the Bronx. Went to college in the Bronx. My husband, at that time, wanted to move to a different place other than the Dominican Republic or Rhode Island, where there were so many Dominican. We wanted to grow up. We want our kids to grow in a safe environment, or where education was more accessible, if I can say that, and the community was not as, I want to use a word that it might not be the proper one, corrupt.
Okay.
New York City is so large, it's so diverse, but we want our kids to be have a sense of community closer.
Okay.
When we moved to Michigan.
Okay.
Yes.
Good, good. So I want to talk, I mentioned in the introduction that Kentwood, Michigan has the most diverse school district in the entire state.
Yes.
Yeah. What's it like teaching there?
It's awesome. It is especially rewarding for me because I see myself in each one of those kids. I have 12 languages in my classroom.
In your classroom, out of 25 kids.
Yes. And none of us speak the same language, and we understand each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's different. It's different.
So when you think back to your time in New York City and this very special ESL teacher that you had, was that part of the motivation to have you become an ESL teacher?
I graduated with my bachelor to work on TV broadcast.
Okay.
And I didn't do it. Then the last year before I graduated, I had this professor who said to me, you know what, you would make a great teacher. And I keep close contact with that teacher, the ESL teacher.
Okay.
And I said, you know what, I think I will. So she was my motivation.
So what was her name?
Her name is Barbara Jacobs.
Okay.
I have not seen her in years.
Okay. Well, I hope she gets a chance to watch your video and hear your update because as a teacher myself, I know how important it is to keep track of, especially of the special students who we've had the privilege of working with. So that's awesome. So what is your typical day like?
Dropping off kids at school, getting up between 5:40 and 6 o'clock in the morning,
Okay.
making breakfast, not all the time, and dropping them off, going to work, and being at work 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock sometimes, and I enjoy it.
Yeah. What do you like best about the kids you work with?
I love the spark in their eyes when I know they understand what I'm saying. And a lot of them talk to me in their language. And it's just like, yes, that's true. And it's like, I have no idea, but it is a great thing that they feel that connection so close to me that they can talk to me in their language because they don't see the language barrier.
Sure, sure. And maybe there's a sense that in some small way you are one of them.
Yes, I have some students calling me mom, and that was like, awesome, it's a boy, I don't have any boys, so yes.
Wonderful. So we met for the first time several months ago at a festival for Bhutanese refugees, and you were dressed in a Bhutanese outfit.
Yes.
You are not Bhutanese.
No, I'm not.
Tell me about that, that clothing decision.
I embrace every culture in my classroom. And I honestly, my favorite book when I was growing up, it's, let me see if I can think of the name in English, because in Spanish is Mil Noches de Noches Arabicas.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000 Arabian Nights.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So I just think it's, I was offered the dress, and it just bring me back to all those stories in that book. So I have clothing from Burma.
Okay.
And when we do a culture day at my school, I dressed on Burmese clothing.
Wonderful.
I love it.
Well, you looked very elegant at the, you looked like you fit in with all of the other people. And were some of the children there actually your school kids?
2 of them were.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
2 of them were.
Yeah. And I think it's really important for those kids, because they're living in an ethnic minority community, family, you know, they know their parents aren't like all the other kids' parents, to see their teacher there.
And to see me dressed in their clothing, it's like, oh, she knows about me.
Yeah.
And it is the great connection. And I have that picture in my classroom, and every time they look at me, they tell me something in their language. And I just think it's awesome that they feel that connection, closing the gap.
Yeah, yeah. How do you manage to keep Dominican culture in your home today?
We dance a lot.
Okay.
We play
awesome.
music, my daughter and I, and at times they don't want to do it. The food, talking to my family in the Dominican Republic and New York. My heart, my home is between New York City and the Dominican Republic. I actually lived more in the United States than I lived in the Dominican Republic.
Sure.
I'm not going to tell you my age, but I live in the Dominican Republic for only 16 years.
Sure.
And the rest of my life has been here.
Okay.
So music, food, and reading books. My favorite writer is Julia Alvarez,
Okay.
the writer in The Time of the Butterflies. So
Awesome. So is Spanish spoken at your house?
yes,
Okay. That's
it's a
that's
mixture.
important because
Yes.
that's part of your culture.
My daughters tell me all the time, she says, Mom, sometimes you tell me things in Spanish that we don't understand, but we love it because when you're arguing, you can't speak English. And I said, I know. It's my feeling. So they goes, okay, Mom. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's awesome. We have to wrap up in a moment, but I'd like to ask you a question with 2 sides. The show is called Feel Like You Belong. What is your understanding of belonging? What creates belonging for you? And what do you think creates belonging for your students?
The sense of belonging is when you have people who are different skin color, speak a different language, but you still can look at them in the eye and communicate with them. Even if it's broken English, or if it is perfect English, or if you communicate with them in another language. I think the sense of belonging, it's the feeling. You don't speak, you can't put word into feelings. You might say happy, sad, but it's the connection that you make with a person, that it goes beyond the words.
Sure, sure. So how do you employ that philosophy in your daily teaching?
In my classroom, I have pictures of the kids in their culture. I have pictures of Nepal. I have pictures of their hometown. And I have languages display around my classroom. For example, one of my favorite bulletin boards is hello in different languages. And I every morning I ask my kids, tell me how to say hello in your language. And we pick one of the students and we say hello in that language. So I think that connection, it's big. They feel like they belong. Someone is going through the same struggle and learning about them.
Is offering just this small piece of respect and maybe dignity, like I see you, I hear you, I value
Yes.
you as well. It's been such a delight having you on the show today.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for coming by and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me here.
You
I
bet.
enjoy it.
You bet. For folks watching back home, please stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment with some tips on American English, American culture, and a little bit of humor.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
We had a chance to chat.
Yes.
So, off the bat, basketball. If we were to line up everybody in the studio and someone were to say, point to the basketball player, you might not be the first person they picked.
I'm not sure if it's because of what I look like or because I'm short, right?
I
Well, I never made any basketball teams in